So we have 4 new members that are inducted to the Hall of Fame tonight. Pam and Ken Scoville, Kevin Boulder, and Kurt Wolf. So the special thing about tonight is you all know everyone is part of the North Sea community. So, and this is the first LUHS skiers up on the Wall of Fame. And I'm glad to see you all here. So, welcome and thank you for coming. Part of the ceremony took place at halftime. So, all the achievements were announced by the announcer, and the inductees received their plaques half year. If I can give it to you. So tonight we're going to give you the inductees a chance to speak and a chance for coaches or athletes to speak about their coaches or athletes. Okay. So this is the highest honor you can achieve as an athlete or coach at Lakeland High School. So again, tonight we have, I think, a very high caliber of athletes and coaches getting on the mat. All right, so we're going to start off with Kevin Walters to come up and say words about his coaches, Ken and Hansel.
First of all, thanks for everyone for coming out. This is truly a very, very special evening for myself and for the others here as well. I have the immense privilege of talking about 2 of my coaches that I had growing up, the inductees for tonight's Hall of Fame. 2 of whose names are known throughout the North Sea world and through town Mountain. I've been asked to say a few words about the contributions of Ken and Pam Scoville, but it's a hard thing to do because there are many words that capture what they have given to this community and the North Sea world. Ken and Pam have been rightfully celebrated across the United States for their remarkable achievements, but beyond their remarkable accomplishments, the story of dedication, passion, and transformative influence. Ken and Pam's commitment to North Skiing has not only took an awful on that, but has left an incredible mark on the state of Wisconsin and town. Their journey began with the establishment of North Skiing as a recognized club sport in varsity status here in high school. Without that status, I would not be here, getting this honor to recognize as a high school sport. Over 30 years ago, Ken and Pam also alongside teacher Forrest Coleman initiated state championships, and the first Wisconsin state championship took place here in Mountain Park. The legacy began that day and see countless Lakeland men, Lakeland women, team and individual state championship winners, commencing with their status as true coaching legends. But let's not forget, we need to talk about who they are and their incredible journey. Ken and Pam have been instrumental in the lives of so many skiers, not only as coaches, but as mentors and role models. Their unwavering belief in the potential of young athletes, their nurturing guidance, and their unrelenting support that has propelled many to reach their full potential. I, for one, stand here as a true testament to their vision and their dedication. As a young skier, they saw something special inside me, a spark. They found a way to pull out the potential in me and all the united plans that led me to the skier that I am today. And without them, it's hard to say right. So for that, I want to say thank you so much. Their dedication to our skiing and this community is nothing short of extraordinary. Without their tireless efforts and their ski for the ski program that they begin, we would not achieve the greatness we enjoy today. It is evident that words cannot alone capture the magnitude of Pam, as I said before, contributions can go without no words captured. Their accomplishments speak volumes, and tonight we have an honor immortalizing them on the wall of fame at the University. The role of our city and the hearts of all of those they have touched, there is no more deserving coaches to grace this wall. I truly believe. Kevin Pam, I thank you for everything you have given and given me, your countless hours, and for your unwavering commitment to the sport we all love. Your legacy will go on forever and inspire us. Congratulations on those who are. And lastly, quick story. I don't know if many of you know Kevin Pam. Just a quick story in high school that Ken loved to talk. He is a talker. Many know, sure. So I remember lots of practices were a lot of talking. Just a lot of talking and a lot of skiing. So that's why I always had to add about 30 to 45 minutes after practice to actually get my training. Joe decided, though, he and Kevin Pam played pivotal roles in my high school career, so thank you so much.
Can you hear me okay? No. Okay, so now if Ken or Pam or both of you want to come up and say a few words? Okay.
Oh, that's okay.
Your coaches.
Teachers, we know how to use the big kid voice.
I don't know, they could say in the room next to me that they could hear when I was teaching math.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if you don't want science, you can get more math. Okay, all right, sure. First of all, thank you for all this week has been memories, memories, and they've all been good. So I really appreciate this. I got my notes too, sorry. You can't hear me? Come on.
Teacher voice.
Okay, I'll put my teacher voice. No, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
We moved up here because we had a friend who said, every night it snows and every day the sky is blue. And so we got here in '76, middle of September, it snowed. We were in heaven. That time, Winter Park was transitioning to be a Nordic Center, and we got involved out there to some degree, Ken Moore being on the foundation president. And Ken and Dan, during those years, you kind of flip-flopped. You were head coach for a while and gave him a coat one year for helping all of you. He thought that was great. And then Ken kind of started the championship in '82 with Lakeland Union High School athletic directors. So see, we have our roots right here. And there were, they said 22. I thought it was 23 kids that skied in very, very cold conditions. They all came back. They shortened the course, and that was the start. And this year it's about the 43rd or some year of skiing, and now there's over 450, but it is middle school and high school. So that I think led to having a state coaches league. It couldn't be WIAA because that needs 40 teams at varsity level. So this was our own coaches league that gave the rules for the competition and organized the schedule for the competitions. We kind of went through this at halftime, but our daughters were young and they needed some ski mates, so I did the Bill Cope League so that they had friends, and that was real successful. Now it's Wolves and Pups and Wolves, so it's still going on at some degree. And then they were in middle school, and I remember we paid our fees. we were the coaches and they were our students, but we continued there, and then I joined Ken in high school. The big complaint was there was no recognition in the high school for the kids. That was what they wanted to be part of the sports community. So the first thing that was connected with the high school was just the announcements. They got, our team is going to play, or maybe somebody won, or whatever. It came on the morning announcements, and that led to us being able to use the facility. We used this before school. We were able to use the weight room. We were able to use the classrooms. We were able to have the ski swap here. We were able to have awards here. We were able to use the soccer field. We would meet here and go down to Bullhead Lake for early practices. And we'd always send a freshman out to make sure that the ice was. And the only one I remember getting wet was you. You went through and you skied with a practice with wet feet. So, and we were allowed to use the vans unless somebody needed them. So sometimes if the competition was really good, Friday night, if somebody won, we might not have the van the next day. We usually went to Winter Park. We always had Dan for our professional out at Winter Park, and the kids had to arrange their own transportation to get out to Winter Park. And then there was a group called Friends of Schleck Lake, and they took the DNR, that's just south of town, land, and got WPS to put in lights, and we were able to practice down there, which was closer, especially on Wednesday nights when it was also church night, and the kids had to go to practices there. So that group helped us. We had a fee, which covered races and it covered uniforms. And I will give Joyce Tessitore the credit for being the one who designed the flames. And they are still the best of any of the skiers. When you see a race, you know, we're coming, because those flames are it. Although one time, one of the athletic directors said, it should be black and white, just like the school, and that was rejected. So. And I will tell you that all of this communication was done by a phone tree. There was not cell, there was not internet. So any team connections, you had to start the phone tree and it went through. We had grades, because we were trying to be according to what varsity needed. So grades were one thing, and I would call the office, and the secretary would say, you really don't need to call. These are smart kids. And I think we had a string of at least 6 valedictorians and salutatorians, and I remember Jean Polfus gave her commencement speech on skiing was what got me through high school. That was the best thing that I could have done. We also had an odd duck every year. Not necessarily intellectually, just a person who was always accepted by the team. Just a character, let's put it that way, he or she. And that, it just warmed my heart, because he was part of, always accepted. For a few years, we had the foreign exchange people join us. I think only 1 of 5 I can remember knew how to ski, but you know, we're in the US and we had to do the right thing in Wisconsin, and that added to the program. So earning club letters, we had grades, we had race qualifications, how many were in, and we had attendance for practices. We tried to bring this up to varsity. Everyone was accepted, everyone was there, but we gave letters to those. And I remember we also gave scholarships because we wanted to be recognized at the awards in the spring. These consisted of $25 per year that you skied, so you could earn up to a whole $100. And our poor kids had to sit there for 3 hours, and then they get to go up on stage, and here's your $25. We wanted that, that's what we wanted. Process did not exist because of Ken and I. It was initiated, but it was the parents, the skiers, the staff at the school, the staff at MHLT, the staff at Winter Park, that really, they were always there. We had parents who would be the van drivers. We had parents who would bring the food. We eventually got a board, and then some of those jobs, the Blows took over all the transportation for the several years they were there. And one of the things that I can say, don't know all the names, I'm gonna list some, that we're really proud of, that Heather Bassett, Doug Kozlu, Claire Popas, Marie Peters, Nikki Gelman, and at our own facility, Stephanie Ballas, Zeke Fashionbauer, Wes Gable, and Jake Van Hefty have been coaches. And Erin Blow is the manager at Winter Park, and her brother is a head groomer for the Berkey. And I know Jeremy Glenn and Doug Malicki went on to be presidents of the UW Hoofers. And then there's a whole bunch of others that have been, not a bunch. There's one that's been an Olympian, there's others that have gone on to college and skied. And sometimes I walk into the chalet and it's like, yo, you're here with your children, you're still skiing, that's neat. So whatever I've been part of giving to cross country and bringing it to the high school, I've received 100 times in return. And I thank all of you and thank you for being here.
So it looks like this one is yours, so you want to take the honors and we'll give it a
Drum roll.
Come on, come on.
So you get a double whammy with two teachers here. And, I go back to 1980. I moved up from Madison in '76, and we got over here and got hired in '77. And we had moved up from Madison specifically for cross-country skiing because we knew there was more snow here than there. And we were ultimately very, very happy with that decision. I had been going to citizen races, which is just your average Joe Blow who could join on any Saturday and ski someplace. And I had some friends who had kids, and they said, "Do you want to come along with me? And we'll do this." And so a ski team started to join just from kind of a rideshare situation. Then we'd ski together and do workouts, and it wasn't really coaching. We were just skiing together. And eventually it formalized a little bit. Not long after that, I had children come along, and I had to step back a little bit. Dan stepped to the forefront and ably coached for a number of years, and I'm not going to recall an exact number, but at that point, I was a cheerleader on the sidelines. Eventually I came back and was Dan's assistant, and eventually he was like, "Ken, you take over and I'll be your assistant." And we worked in partnership for that much of my coaching career. We were, on the ground together during the week, and then I would handle the weekends, and it was a very beneficial relationship on my part, and being able to use Dan as a resource. Back when we started, there was classic only skiing, the traditional back and forth style. That changed in about 84, 85. We always had to instruct and teach about the environment, the techniques, the how to hydrate, all the facets that go into this very complex sport of cross-country skiing. So it became a rigorous adventure for me, but I always saw the plus side. Even though we had, I'm not going to call it disadvantages, but still, I sometimes looked at Ted Voigt going, I would like to be in there in a nice warm environment sometimes going, can we replace that light bulb up there? I need a little more pressure in this basketball. Skiing and coaching has its challenges, and part of it was being involved from November to March. Basically, was our season. So you come in what is known as the end of dry land training. Dry land is when we don't have snow. So you've got to keep the kids who come in from all sorts of sports. They could be runners, they could be swimmers, they could be non-athletes, absolutely, and soccer player, football player, what have you, and start to train them together so that physically, when they hit snow, they're ready to go. So that was a complex thinking process and new for me because I had done some junior high track coaching, but that was about it. So skiing for me was very much a mental challenge, an accumulation of information and how to go about doing the task. I think that there are 2 or 3 types of coaches that we juggle hats with. One is the head coach who has to know it all and have some background on every aspect of the sport. And then as we get to competitions, we had basically 3 coaching positions. One would be the woods coach, where the coach would go out and stand in the woods and either encourage or, in the case of interval timing, offer splits to the athletes as they come by to say, here's where we think you are in relation to everybody else at skiing. Technique cues, that kind of thing. But basically you're out there from the beginning of the competition, which could be multifaceted with different age groups perhaps, or genders, or depends on the system. And then you ski out with a backpack full of warm clothes, you get off, and you feed yourself for the day, and you take care of business in the woods. A lot of coaches all have to have some information about waxing, and the waxing is a critical component in our sport. And it's sometimes the make or break it as far as the kids and how they feel about their confidence in you as a coach. So that's another intellectual aspect where you have to say, how do I do this? What does it require for me to become proficient and perhaps exceptional? Because you had bad days waxing, you had good days waxing. Some were kitted out of the ballpark. Everybody had great skis. Ain't this a great day? And other days like, just did the best I could. Sorry kids, let's try again the next time. So that was it. And then the other type of coaching, position if you will, was called a stadium coach. So the stadium coach could be somebody aging or someone who is just needed to send the kids off, to get them lined up, ready to go for the competition, and to greet them as they come back and say how to go. What was your strong point, your things that you can improve on, etc. So I usually, in my coaching career, could be at any one of the 3. And actually being in the woods was my fondest memories of kind of the solitude. And yet here come the skiers, and you got to see them do their thing. Whereas, again, a weird sport in that we ask the parents to let them have their children under our control. And we come to a competition. They stand over there somewhere while we get them ready. We send them off in the woods for 20 or 30 minutes. They come back all hot and sweaty and collapsing on the line, and that's all they see their kids. They take off, they come back. How'd it go out there? Great. Had a great time. So the woods coach got to see a different aspect of the athlete, and how the competition was going, and what the technique improvements that could be made as you watch this skier. And of course, my time as coaching covered, rudimentary 8mm film, if you remember those things, up to the little camera things you hold on your phone to see the skiers go by. So that was another way to educate the skiers. I don't know if it's a lifetime sport. Everybody ages out of things in their lives, but I think it's a sport that has great memories, great connections, and something that's been a very important part of our lives. And I don't have any specific talents in life, but I think I know a good thing when I see it. So this is a good thing for us. I'd like to introduce a skier in our midst here, a skier who I will transition to in our award ceremony. with a little story. We had a meet in Minnesota that we would go to occasionally, not on a regular basis because it was a long drive. We went up to Giants Ridge north of Duluth, about 5 hours away. And the meet was the largest cross-country high school race in North America, 1,500 skiers. We had heard that maybe there's a bigger one in Norway, but we didn't know for sure. But anyway, this was a big deal. And anytime we crossed the river into Minnesota, we went into the land of the giants. We have approximately 250 high school skiers in the state of Wisconsin. Over there, they have 3,000. So they filter through all of those kids to select 200 to go to the high school championships, whereas our meet is an all-comers. You learned to ski this year? Come on, you can be in the state high school meet. Obviously, the top elements of our state meet produce high-level quality skiers, but it's still a different aspect. So we go to this race called the Mesabi East Invitation. With all these kids, they start 2 at a time every 15 seconds. That year, we were elected to do classic instead of freestyle as a team. We'd take 4 boys and 4 girls. So we went out for the pre-ski on Friday, and the course ran for about 1 kilometer along a golf course, and then it headed uphill. And it climbed for about 1.5 kilometers uphill, and then it was pretty much a downhill descent because it wasn't an alpine slope that we were skiing with cross-country trails off the side. So as we skied with the kids, I said, it looks to me like this could be a good place for double pole kick, right in here. Maybe up there, depends on conditions. So let's work on that a little bit in our pre-ski on Friday. So we did that, we prepared, and so then Saturday morning, my job as a coach is to be out there around daybreak. So I ski the course, and it was a balmy -7, -8, something like that. And again, the tracks were set the night before. They were hard, they were fast. It was like, I think we're nailing it. So we skied, and, it was like magic. And it's just a few coaches out that time of the day. Go back to the motel, tell the kids, game plan a double pole kick. Carry it as far as you can. So we get up there, and Kevin and I was a stadium coach that day. We didn't have enough bodies on hand to go out in the woods, so we're hopping around, staying warm. Kevin's jazzed up, was like, ready, set, go. He takes off with the other kid, dusts him off into the golf course setting that we can't see. And of course, I'm like every parent, I'm just standing there going, what's happening out there? Who knows? So luckily, some of the more sophisticated Minnesota coaches had walkie-talkies, top of the hill, high point turnaround. And you could hear the buzz. It was like, who is that? What? Where's that kid from? What's that uniform? Somebody tell me what's happening here. It was like, I think I know. Can I tell you a name or two? That's my kid, Kevin Bolger. So he comes scooting down the hill. It's an interval timed race, so you don't know until the results start spitting out. But there it was, Kevin Bolger, 30 seconds ahead in a 5K race. That's good. There are other kids still coming. Let's see what happens. It holds, it stands. Kevin wins by over 30 seconds. The next 5 places are within 15 seconds off of his 30. That's the mark of a kid who knew what he wanted, listened to coaching, and yet at the same time, as I said before, waxing is critically important. And I said before, Kevin, what are we doing for kick weights? Coach, Swick's VR30, 3 layers, long, middle, short. Okay. He knew what was going on. It was like, I'm not working against that, It's like, let him have it. Obviously, it was a winning wax. And so now we have a skier who not only won that day, but has won repeatedly. And I can't tell you, 2 times Wisconsin state champ, 4-year member of the University of Utah ski team from 2014 to 17, member of the 2017 University of Utah national champs, the 2017 National Sprint Classic champion, a member of the 22 Winter Olympic team in Beijing, and just a darn nice guy, Kevin Gold.
Yeah, I don't have much to say, but the funny thing is, when in high school and still now, I'm still a slender, skinny guy, and we would wear Lycra when we race. So a lot of these races, probably that Wasabi race too, whenever I would go off, when you come back into the woods, the first thought was, how's he doing? But the second was like, I hope his Lycra are still up on his waist, and they just didn't slide. So that was, and the bibs always flapping. But no, it's pretty awesome to be here. It's I get to do what I love. It's easy, and what makes it easy is the support of everyone that's here and that has been here my entire career. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible to do what I love, and you guys make it easy. Truly, truly easy. And I think I've said it before. I've set all these goals in my career, and every year I come back here and the town comes to support me and give me motivation, give me drive, and I've always been really lucky to have that, because I've come to terms that if I fail in something, I didn't want to let I'm gonna cry a little bit. Let the town down, let you guys down. So when I made the Olympics, it was really special for me, but it was really cool because everyone that came out to support me, I didn't let you guys down, and that was my biggest goal. So thanks.
So, Kevin is our first Olympian on the. Okay, so our next inductee is Kurt Wolf, who's a 92 grad at Lakeland. So Kurt cannot be here today because he lives in Norway, but we have a video feed, so hopefully you can see this. So Dan Clausen is going to come up and say a few words about Kurt's career.
Well, first of all, when I met Ken, we were still racing on wooden skis. So that ages us for ski racing a little bit. And I remember Ken was helping some kids, and he came to me at Ashby, and they said, would you be head coach of the ski team? I said, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I'd like to do that. And of course, this was before we had the high school support, so it was a Winter Park supported team. Well, anyway, Georgia Wolf calls me up, and she said, why should my son go out for skiing, or should he go out for basketball? And I said, well, skiing, of course. It's gonna be way more fun, and he'll be skiing all his life. And sure enough, Kurt showed up. Well, what was interesting about Kurt, in high school, he was already a black belt karate expert. Very, very skilled. Never skied before, but he was so coordinated that teaching him how to ski was the simplest person I've ever worked with. And it was just so much fun, and I could actually keep up with him. It was really, really cool. So those are really good times, and we became very good friends. And not only did we ski together, but we biked together, and we paddled together, and did all kinds of things together like that. And I spent 9 summers going down to Australia teaching skiing in the summer times. And Kurt would actually live in my house and take care of my dog, and I'd be off in Australia. And that was he was very mature to be able to do that. But yeah, he was a really good athlete, and well, he still is. And to this day, he still has some of the best technique in the country. He's a very good skier, and he's still racing and all that. And some of the fondest memories, I guess, is I went with him to Junior Olympics in Anchorage, and the first year he did real well. I can't remember exactly what he did, but the toughest kid around was Todd Montabo. He was an Alaskan kid, and he would win every single race. So the next year we went to Rumford, and Kurt kicked his ass in every single race. And he won 3 gold medals and was junior national champion. And I remember a funny story about that because I was used to waxing in really warm conditions, waxing and coaching a team in Australia. And I remember at the breakfast table, one of the other coaches put a vial of Sarah F on my breakfast plate. And, those of you that know most of you know what Sarah F is, and it's a wax that we can't use anymore, but it was the fastest thing around. And I go, no way, we're not using that stuff. I said, Rico Yellow, that runs better than anything. And I couldn't believe it. At that race, our kids, and especially Kurt, they'd have to stand up or they'd run into the kids that were using this Sarah F. And the whole team just outglided Alaska and the East and the West and stuff like that. And we just had really good results. And all of a sudden, this kid's like, wow, national champion. So then he went on. He got a scholarship to Michigan, and he was coached by Stan Feldheim. And then he got a scholarship to the University of Utah, where they won the NCAA championships. So he was doing very well, and for unfortunate circumstances, he was about to make the U.S. ski team and stuff, but this wasn't going to be for him. So he didn't do that. He now lives in Trondheim, and his son Sievert got a full scholarship to University of Denver, and he's skiing for them right now and doing quite well. But I think the thing that means the most to me is Kurt and I very much cherish the friendship that we have to this day, because we really did a lot of things together. And I think what was really cool was when he was a senior, he got out of high school at noon, and he would work for me in the ski shop. But my deal was, you don't work until you get your training done. So he would go do his 2 hours of training, and then maybe later in the afternoon come and wax skis like that. So it worked out pretty good for him that he could get out at noon and do all that training. And I think the funniest thing when we used to do our indoor trainings is I would play Hungry Like the Wolf, Duran Duran. Ow! And that would motivate him. And we'd just blast that in the chalet. And all the other kids liked it too. Now it was loads of fun coaching him and just watching him develop so quickly. And those of you that know him, you all know that he's just like a terrific person. And I'm so honored to accept his award. I very much wish he was here, and you all wish he was here. But thanks, Kurt. Love you, buddy. Oh!
I have tell a couple of Kurt Wolf stories. I followed Kurt Wolf around in the 90s. And Dan Clausen promises all his people that he knows in the ski community, if they want to come and train for the Berkey, they can stay at his house. And he told Kendall Butts, who was a disabled coach at that time, if your wife Ingrid, who was on the U.S. ski team, wants to come to Monaco and train for the Berkey, you can stay at my house. Well, Kendall called Dan up to accept that offer, and Dan had people, all the guys in the house, his house was full. And he says, but I know a guy in town that probably has an empty room, and that was me. And Ingrid Butts came and skied with us and stayed with us for a week, and she skied with Kurt Wolf. She skied the Olympics in Lillehammer. She wasn't on a ski team at the time because of some kind of medical program, but she came and she won the Berkey that year, the women's division. She skied with Kurt, and she said at 16, he was the best young skier she had ever seen ski. And part of it was, like Dan says, is because of his balance. I've had the privilege of hanging out at Winter Park for over 30 years, and last winter, Kurt was there with his son, Sievert. Now, I'm gonna cry because I watched him ski behind Sievert, and it was almost music. It brought tears to this old man's eyes to see a father and son ski like that. And when Kurt came over one time, I said to Kurt, I said, his son Sievert was 15 years old, living in Norway. I said, Kurt, I remember a 15-year-old Kurt Wolf and how fast he was. I said, how fast is this Sievert Wolf son of yours? And he smiles at me and he says, faster. I said, how much faster? He says, a lot faster.
So Kurt did send me something to read on his behalf. All right, so he says, maybe a few words about what inspired me in the start. When people have asked me over the years what got me into skiing, the story always starts at home, skiing around Sunday Lake or bushwhacking in the surrounding woods with my parents. But I also tell them that I was mostly into basketball when I was in grade school. When I was in 8th grade, I was really looking forward to playing high school basketball with a great and motivating coach named Ted Boyd. But a kid who was already a freshman named Adam Wood approached me one day and said they were trying to put together a high school ski team. He wondered if I would be interested in being part of it. I always liked skiing, being out in the woods and going out on little kid adventures, and it sounded intriguing. So I called Ted and asked him what he thought I should do. He was really positive and told me he thought I should try it out, and if I didn't like it, basketball would be there for me my sophomore year. So that sounds simple enough, but I was surprised then, and I'm even more impressed today with that advice from a coach of a competing sport. So I started to train that fall with Adam, mostly biking and rollerblading with ski poles, trying to figure out how to go fast. Ha. In parentheses, we didn't know that much about skiing and didn't know roller skis existed. The training was fun, and I really loved the challenge of pushing myself hard physically. I met Ken Scoville that fall, and things got more exciting, hearing stories of the sport of cross-country skiing and starting to learn about the big Scandinavian names that were at the top of the sport at that time. Ken was actually the person who drove me up to UP for my very first ski race. I still remember being nervous for the race, sitting in his truck next to him on the way up north on snowy roads, the back end sliding out a bit around the corners. Later that fall, my mom and I took a drive out to Winter Park to meet Dan Clausen and to buy my first set of racing skis. Dan was amazing. He was so enthusiastic, positive, and seemed genuinely excited to get me started. I learned so much from Dan throughout the next few years, which I am forever grateful for. But I am most grateful for the friendship we developed over that time. In high school, I was lucky enough to have my gym teacher as my homeroom teacher, and he gave me access to the pool and let me come in early to train before school. He also gave me a safe place to park my bike. I would ride my bike to school, swim, make it just in time for my first class, take the bus out to Winter Park after school, and ski in the evening. I don't think many of my classmates even had a clue of what I was doing. The sport of skiing is so complex, with the techniques you need to learn to move efficiently and fast, the training methods to develop your body to perform at its absolute maximum capacity. There are so many factors involved, and everything has to happen optimally over a long period of time in order for you to have a top performance in a race. These things were fascinating for me in the beginning and for sure all the way through my career. They were also actually a big part of the reason why I eventually quit ski racing in the end. But that's another story. Ski racing is for sure a fascinating sport, but it was really the environment around the sport, the people who got me hooked. Dan, Ken and Pam, and Ted Ashby, and the community at Winter Park were and are a unique group of people who, as a teenager, brought me in and gave me everything I needed to launch me on what ended up to be and what he calls an okay skiing racing career. Okay as far as results go, but I would say quite successful in regards to the opportunity it gave me into college and beyond. I am forever grateful. Thank you so much to you, Ted, for helping me give me the confidence to try something completely new, and to Dan, Ken, Pam, and the entire community at Winter Park for all the support, positivity, and inspiration. So. Dan will stand in for the big reveal. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. So one thing I did, I really pulled out from, because I am not a skier. But everybody here, one thing I learned is it's just a community. That's a big word that sticks out. It's a community of skiers. So, I mean, this crowd here says it all. I mean, I know how hard, I have a lot of skiers on, I'm a cross-country coach at Lake, running coach. So a lot of the kids end up on the running team too. So I know a lot of the kids, and they are all great kids, and they're all good students. So thank you again, and I guess congratulations to our athletes, our coaches, and the whole community.
Got your name tag on. Still know who you are. It's quite a few, they said.